Very interesting. We already have some hands up. So without further ado, let's go to it. Gary, Jose, Shahin, Lydia, you're getting all kinds of responses. You've clearly motivated us, at least to raise our electronic hands, Simon. That's not big on calorie burning, but it's high on the motivation scale. Gary, go ahead.
I'm listening. I'm just plugging my laptop in. Sorry.
Okay. Maybe I should let him do that so he's not distracted.
Thank you. I'm done. There we go.
There you go. I hope that was good exercise. So, a very, very interesting talk for lots of reasons. I thought one subject that I thought you might talk about that you didn't, and it may be that you thought about it a lot and it didn't fit, was a subject of I think two related subjects of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And then also, as I understand it, there's research that suggests now that people actually build muscle better, are more fit, when they're actually paying attention to what they're doing with their body. So, for instance, I've got a friend who did a bit of fitness training with her friends, and she always tried to really emphasize enjoying the feeling of what was happening in your body. And so it seems to me that, the idea that there's a potentially at least something maybe there's a continuum of kinds of motivation, something more intrinsic where you're going to take conscious pleasure in what you're doing with your body, can be really powerful in becoming fit. And it seems like most of our culture around fitness just ignores that completely. It's like you have to do it and you're not going to like doing it. So, manipulate yourself into doing it. Anyways, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. So I think it draws back to what we've been talking about before about reason, because obviously if you're talking about intrinsic motivation, I think we're talking about intrinsic beliefs, right? Or being conscious of, also being conscious of the exercise you're doing is something that happens in the prefrontal cortex. Is like, I'm aware that what I'm doing and I'm aware that what is happening is good for me. And yeah, I'm aware of those studies. I think they've happened quite a long time ago, that if we consciously enjoy what we're doing and tell us that it's good for our body, then we produce more muscle mass, develop better cardiorespiratory effect. So yeah, I guess that really would be, again, out of my depth for what the role and the effect of the prefrontal cortex is in terms of connecting with the reward circuitry and connecting with, beneficial effects within the body. And that, it leads into that very big subject of the mind-body debate. How much of those thoughts really, it seems to me that it's not what Jonathan Haidt might say, is that it seems to me more and more that it's not quite as extreme as just the prefrontal cortex is a member of the audience watching the play. It seems that it has more of a role with studies like you suggest, right? It seems like, no, it's actually influencing our behavior. It's not just prefrontal cortex observing, or it's not just reflecting on our passions and then, sort of creating reasoning post hoc. It's actually got a role to play, and how much of a role something I'm grappling with. I hope that helps a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to state your questions in a very succinct manner, since there are 8 more people who want to chime in, and I would like everyone to chime in for this. All right, so please state your question briefly, and Simon, give them the best shoot from the hip response you can. Pepe, por favor.
Thank you very much, Simon, for your presentation. And we are very close, I suppose, because I'm here in Seville and we are sharing the hot weather now. But my question is the following one. For me, it's very interesting because we are working on philosophical workshops in prisons and with people at social risks with the metaphor of gyms, of gymnasium. So gymnasium, to work out and to train some philosophical abilities. Anyway, let me be the devil's lawyer. And for me, what you said, it's something very good for animals, children, and young people. But in philosophy, for example, you can have another kind of, I don't want to use the word motivation, but another ways to do things. For example, deontological actions. why do we have some things? In some occasions, it's not because I have a motivation, but it is because I have to do it. For example, why I am going to have some concerns or some preoccupation for my student, it is not because of rewards, but it is because I am a professional and my professionalism make that I do it. So maybe in philosophy, there are another ways or reasons to do some things, and you don't need rewards. Or for example, when you work with people at social risk, in some occasion you can have some rewards, but in another occasion you don't need rewards. You do it because you have to do it, because you are a human being or something like that. I don't know what you think about this other perspective.
So I touched a little bit on integrity, and I basically, in my opinion, I think that we're lying to ourselves. I think that when we act stoically, for example, we act, no, I can do this on my own time because this is, what I need to do. I think that we're basically ignoring, our conditioning, which is conditioned based on the expectation of rewards or consequences, which we measured in neurotransmitter release. And when we pull down the curtains behind our private actions that we think, oh, I'm disciplined, I'm being stoic, I'm doing this because it's my career, my profession, I think we're lying to ourselves. I think we can find a reason, and that will always draw back to our biology, our instincts, and how that we relate in a social setting, because, we're very sophisticated social mammals, but we're still social mammals.
Okay, that's very bad news for Immanuel Kant and duty ethics. I'm sorry to say. It's back to the amygdala. Okay, thank you. Next up, Shahin, welcome. Please ask your questions succinctly, and go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Simon. I enjoyed your talk. I had a question about how to handle this in practice. I deal with a lot of depressed and demotivated clients, and the problem, there's the fundamental motivation problem sometimes where, I tell them, okay, let's say I tell them one of the great exercises that you mentioned, which I agree if they did would be great for them, right? Like write up a list of your peers, or hey, go find a social circle, or hey, whatever, right? And they just can't do it. They're not even motivated to do that. Like I tell them, hey, just measure how much you're drinking, or just measure how much porn you're watching. Just tell me how much you did. You don't have to do any, just measure it. And they can't even do that, right? And so what do I do with that? How do you deal with that? Or am I just not as good at it as
Well, again, small steps. Again, making things as easy as possible reduces the perceived energy expenditure, and we know that small steps can lead on to progress. So, making people look at things and clients look at things in small steps is the first step. But it sounds like you're already doing that. Off the top of my head, what I do with the client is I'll do 5 push-ups with them every session. And 5 push-ups seems like nothing, and it seems like a waste of time. But when I start telling my client that 5 push-ups every day makes 1,835 in a year, suddenly they start to connect, hey, holy shit, I feel differently. I feel differently about myself. They have a serotonin burst, and they're thinking, wow, I actually am connecting energy expenditure with a reward. And I think for me, the way I think of depressed people is that they consider their future, they consider actions, and they have no expectation of reward. Therefore, their body, their nervous system protects them with an overwhelming emotion of laziness and fatigue. They go and sit on the sofa, they go lie down, they go sleep, because they have no expectation of reward. And my job is to make them connect with some sort of reward. And if I can do it with them by literally holding their hand and doing 5 push-ups with them in the session, then that's what I would do.
Thank you.
Okay, Lydia, please go ahead.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much. This day is, I really want to go to the bathroom or eat, but I cannot. Each speaker, each topic goes to another direction. This is mind-blowing. Thank you, Lou, and everybody else that organized that, and thank you for all the speakers. Simon, this is a fantastic topic. I didn't like the idea that you said that if people do not work out or run for 2 days, they feel bad. This is not good philosophically. You have to think about that. Yes, we must have the leisure, the capacity to have more freedom and not be addicted to that. This is one point. What I did like is your contextualization, the environment. This is very Nietzschean. You're working in a tradition in philosophy. If you ever write another book, so here's the pointer. It's Montaigne, it's Spinoza, it's Nietzsche, etc. So Spinoza can be helpful. I just gave a talk less than 1 month ago in Rome about work. Desire, in philosophy, you won't find the word motivation. If you go to psychology, you find 600. In philosophy, the one you'll find is motive. And motive, the closest notion is desire. In the West, we thought of desire as lack. This is not so working. It's Plato, and it brings to Schopenhauer. That means that you're going to work to Plato, you had a desire to work, but then you have the desire field, you don't want to work anymore. So it's either boredom according to Schopenhauer or suffering, and that's it. So welcome to Plato that leads to Schopenhauer. But if you change the concept of desire to the Spinoza concept that says that desire is not a lack, it's a power. Yes. So welcome to Spinoza. When you go to work, you're activating your own power. And this, it's very related to Hume, the fact that it's not true reason that you do it, it's actually to your passion. Why am I saying that? This may be helpful for you if you want to develop a philosophic concept of motive, of desire, and of contextualizing many things that, as Spinoza said, we don't know what the body can do. This is what has to be investigated. So the other way around everything. I have many more things to tell you, but I think I'll stop here. And I'll write to you personally about this idea of desire as power and what does it mean to exercise your own power and capacity and also physically.
Lydia, excuse me. I think it's a good idea to write Simon about the conatus and all that. We want to take questions now. In the remaining few minutes, we have 6 more people. So please allow the questioners to question, okay? Thank you.
I would like to say a couple of things on this, Lou. First of all, Lydia.
Yes.
The first point is, I talk about ethics in the book in terms of a moral obligation to exercise. But the point of the book is what actually makes us exercise. I write, for better or for worse, bodybuilders go back to the gym because of serotonin. I don't think what they're doing is good for their health. We can talk about the extremes of fitness, and there's obviously many negative aspects, and not feeling good about yourself and not missing 2 days of exercise. We can expound on that for a long time, but thank you. Obviously, I'm aware of that. The second point I think is more important. Second point, and this I think is really the crux of the issue with my philosophy and my schematic. And this goes back to the willpower paradox. A lot of the people you're referencing, they present their own schematic, which was, well, definitely pre a lot of the scientific advancement we've made today. Talking about things like desire. Desire, I would still refer back to the dopaminergic system, right? And so when we start to ground these things in neuroscience, the more and more I find, if we keep operating in a scientific realist framework, then we remove this notion of free will, we remove this notion of willpower. And I definitely acknowledge that I'm challenging an emotional connection for everybody, because we all feel like we have free will. And so I feel like that's going to tie into a lot of concerns.
I agree with you, Simon. I said Spinoza because Spinoza denies free will. And Damasio, talking about what you're talking now, showed the connection between Spinoza and those late research. But I can comment upon with you about this later.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Carolina, we have 5 more questioners at least, so please be very brief so we can get in the quick Q&A.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Simon. I would like to add a small thing that it is typically aligned to this move from the passive system to the active system when we activate the acts of power, the decision, the choice, and I want, so I can. And then it will motivate to the limbic system in a way that we can resolve the anxiety and other things. And what I want to tell you about your subject, most of the clients that were okay with the activating system of the acts of power, continue to the sportive system. So they to have the full reconciliation, they go forward to the active system in sports and all the efforts. I want to ask one more thing. Do you use the rule of 21 days to let the mind make a habits and make a sign to the brain and the limbic system, or you do not use it?
No, no, I don't use it. That came from a guy who was writing on. Came from a guy who was. I can't remember his name right now. I have written an article about it. It's on my Medium account. He was studying what happens to patients, how long it took them to forget about their phantom limb was 21 days. No, the development of habit formation. I write this. It depends on repetition, stable environment cues, which also depends on timing, consistency, sleep cycles, the amount of reward, and a few other factors. And so the complexity of the behavior, all of these things will affect or accelerate or decelerate habit formation. So that's what, and so it's not 21 days. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Patricia, Rick, Karen, and then Patricia, and then Dion. Okay, let's go. Patricia.
Okay, thank you, Lou. I will be very quick. Thanks for your presentation, Simon. I like it very much. I find it stimulating. Just a quick question. In a way, I'm not repeating what Lydia said, but just how you integrate the value of respecting your body, being fit and moving and finding the right motivation to live more and longer and more healthier, which I share, of course. It's a Western value, and we all live longer. With the value of being lazy and sometimes lost and bored, which is a value for children as well. I mean, living then, doing nothing and just thinking and dreaming and being not productive, which is very important for all of us, because when we move, we try to solve problem. Where we don't move, maybe we think how to solve problem and how to enjoy and create and doing useless things. But because it's a big problem. How to integrate a value, which is our value of being fit and move all over, all the time. And because otherwise it's like considering the being lazy and sloth like one of the 7 deadly things of the Christian tradition. To integrate how you pass this value of being taking time and being lazy.
So essentially the value, I don't, because the value, as I was saying, the value is as an abstract belief in our prefrontal cortex. It's often not what connects to our reward circuitry. So I don't try and connect those two, because I know that that's what fails. Everyone has that belief. Everyone has that value. I should be exercising. I should be staying healthy. I should be looking after my body. But they suddenly, when they think about exercise, overcome with this emotion of laziness and fatigue. So I don't. What I do is I try and say, okay, let's put that to one side. And then let's try and connect with the limbic system for immediate rewards or consequences, which are going to then stimulate them to want to expend that energy instead of having that emotion of laziness and fatigue.
Yeah, okay. And if a person wants to be active all the time, and you have to teach him or her to slow down and taking time, being a bit bored and just doing the opposite, which is as healthy as the opposite, how you do it?
Well, that's a different problem.
That's what I meant before.
I would stimulate, guide, and facilitate opposing behaviors that have less energetic cost, and that person would probably adopt them instead of exercising. They would displace exercise with the new behavior or new behaviors.
Okay.
Okay, Rick, please go ahead.
Hi, I'll try to make this quick. I really appreciate the technical, pragmatic stuff about expectation of reward driving change. Some problem things. I just want to throw them out there, because I have to. I don't know what my reward is going to be for this, but we often expect different kinds of rewards, and they're in competition with each other.
and we can reframe things. And what you do with your clients seems to get them to reframe what their expectation of rewards are. So if you can do that to yourself, this is the free will question. I mean, if we understand what makes us tick and we could alter what's ticking, then we have some free will. One more thing I wanted to throw out there. Expectation of reward is a belief. And in that regard, that's an element of reason which guides your belief that X is worth pursuing. That's a belief. And that if you really believe it, that informs you to want X. And if you want X, then you do X. So this is just a wrench that I'm throwing in the machinery just for fun.
So when I say expectation of reward, so what's your name, Eric? I mean a subconscious expectation of reward. So we can talk about the nature of belief and the fact that is it something we have to have in our prefrontal cortex, or is it just our emotional response to a statement or something that's said? And that gets into murky water. But when I say expectation of reward or consequence, I mean a subliminal, subconscious expectation of reward or consequence that maybe the prefrontal cortex is aware of and maybe it isn't. So in that sense, I think in the way you're saying belief, I don't mean belief. I mean that our nervous system just weighs it up and it does most of it subliminally, most of it subconsciously. It doesn't factor in all the things consciously, all the variables consciously.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Like Lydia, you've raised some deeper questions we can't possibly address in the remaining time. But let's go to Karen and Patricia and Dion, okay? Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, Simon. I really liked your presentation. I agree with 99% of it. You said one thing I think maybe we can clarify and make it even stronger, a little puzzling statement you made that guidance beats motivation. And that word beats sort of bothers me because it seems to throw us back into a cognitive world where you want some kind of leadership word there. Guidance somehow guides motivation, but just to amplify and agree with everything that you've been saying, I would put it that, if somebody was going to go for a run or something and they could think about getting thin, they could think about their friends, they could think about blue sky, the dog they're going to see. But to use a little tactile example, even the color of their socks is important. At every single moment of every single day, we have these subliminal feelings. Our limbic system is firing off for negative or for positive, and that's just really important. Everything we do has a feeling associated with it, and we really have to be aware of that to exercise or do anything.
Yeah. So I think I'm not sure if I did. Motivation in that sentence should have been in inverted commas. When I said motivation there, I think in the more contemporary use of motivation, these ideas we manifest in our prefrontal cortex about why exercise is good for us. And guidance, I think, trumps that. It trumps those beliefs in our prefrontal cortex. Because I think we have those. Everyone has those. And often it's my experience, and as the experience in the experiment I referenced with the tetanus jabs, is it's not about how much we want something in our prefrontal cortex. Often it's just, we don't realize this and we don't acknowledge it. And we really often don't acknowledge what our genuine emotions are around when exercise and what we consider with exercise. But when my clients know exactly what to do and how to do it, the likelihood of them doing it increases way more than if I keep trying to motivate them in that contemporary sense of, this is really important for your health.
Long-term motivation, the grand and noble thing of losing weight or becoming a better person or whatever.
But when we talk about motivation, as I said before, is it being anything that makes us move, then yes, guidance comes under that umbrella for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I can go with that.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that insightful interjection. Patricia, nice to hear from you finally. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just have a comment, but I really appreciated your presentation. And I guess if one is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I could not help but associate what you were saying with Aristotle's developmental stages of becoming a virtuous person. And of course, the notion of virtue encapsulates that we are both animal and rational. And so it is really a matter of us finding some kind of, we aren't aware or motivated to become what we are, but we do become what we are. And he also, of course, stridently stresses both the import of the guide and the role of habit, both of which are absolutely necessary precursors. So I just kept seeing a lot of interesting comparisons there, and I really appreciate what you said.
Thank you, Patricia.
Okay, and thank you also, Patricia. Last and far from least, Dion, go ahead, please. Unmute.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much. That a lot of things to think about there. I just two little things. One, I wanted to ask you a question about if you had come across anything in terms of being, doing guidance. Is there anything that you came across with regard to exercise or any kind of, changing of behavior within that physical realm, which I know is very difficult for a lot of people, to just do exercise for exercise sake, to, be in the body, enjoy that process in and of itself, which is very, very different to professional training that you mentioned, people who have to train every day and they can't, because if they can't 2 days, they feel terrible. So I was there. I used to be a professional ballet dancer, and that was very, very different, kind of physical activity to what I do now, which is just for the physical activity. So I think it's a completely different situation, because when you're doing it for those reasons, there's a lot of idealization, a lot of emotion of perfection and performance and all that caught up in it, but just kind of general exercise, general changing a way to do it. Is there nothing that just was about being in the body for no other reason? With regard to the reward system question.
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer is no. Remember, see, these are why we exercise. What actually makes exercise is a multivariate explanations. And so I would say that if you're a professional athlete, you have lots of things like serotonin playing a big role, expectation of performance, and so on. But then I talk a lot about things like fun, things that are just releasing dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphin, which will be fun. Like dancing is fun. Why is dancing fun? And we can look at anthropology and dancing as a performative act for mating and so on. But why things are inherently fun still will tie back to that they had an underlying biological motive, evolutionary speaking. And normally, even if we feel good in ourselves, by ourselves, seems like there's no external factor. Our reason for moving, if we're expending energy, well, somewhere, if we unpack everything, we'll find some sort of neurochemical reward that connects to some sort of evolutionary foundation.
Okay, thank you very much. Simon, the only liability in your presentation is that you've stimulated more interest and in discussion about your topic than we have time to accommodate. So I think that's a huge success. And yeah, hold your book up to the screen so we can all take a close look at the cover, working it out. And I think this is obviously going to be a great read, and you'll probably get some email from philosophers soon in further response. So thank you so much for a great presentation. Let's give Simon a well-deserved virtual round of applause, and thanks a lot. Really stimulating in more ways than one.